Hello, and thank you for coming to our presentation. This is a group of faculty, an instructional designer, and an outside partner from SUNY and Lumen Learning who are here to talk to you about our original Spanish project that we created over the last 18 months. Part of the reason why we wanted to bring this to Open Ed was because we think that this is a pretty good model for the way future textbooks should be written. Both in the SUNY system and also for the other large systems that are participating in OER initiatives. First of all, the SUNY system identified a few key areas where there was not highly developed OER materials available, and they identified Spanish as one of those areas. They had an open call for proposals, and the team from SUNY Oneonta put together a grant, and through a competitive grant process, their proposal was chosen to create some original Spanish materials. In addition to the team at SUNY Oneonta, which was 4 faculty members and an instructional designer, the SUNY system provided resources for those faculty and included putting us together with Lumen Learning, who was our outside consultant who helped us with the OER creation. And what was really important for this was, in addition to helping create the content originally, they also agreed to take on the continuous improvement of the textbook after it's first written. So we really like that this project was funded to be created, but then in the future, it will continue to be updated by Lumen and Lumen's experts. We're going to invite the faculty and they'll each introduce themselves as they start. And first up is Beth Small.
Hi, I'm Beth Small. I'm one of the Spanish instructors on the project, and I wanted to start by emphasizing just how important it was to have the outside resources. This is not something we could have done as well if it were just the 4 of us faculty members. That was a crucial thing. And then in terms of focusing on how the rest of you out there in YouTube land are going to do your own OER projects, I wanted to talk about how we settled on a process and emphasize that we evolved a more and more efficient process as we went along. We used shared documents for drafting the chapters, the units as we were working on them, started them out as a template and then sort of filled them out as we went along. We needed to develop a process where we decided at what point we were going to go from just writing the chapters to actually uploading them into the online textbook, and how we would identify when things had changed once the uploading and coding process had happened, so that things didn't get we used a system of comments on the documents that we were sharing. But the communication about process became a really important thing. The other aspect of that was who was going to write what. In the very first couple of chapters that we wrote in the Spanish 1 side of the book, each one of us had a couple of different chapters and we did the whole chapter each. And then we discovered that led to inconsistencies of style and meant that we had to rewrite the whole book very substantially. And so we changed our process in the second half of the book, so that each one of us had different parts of all the different chapters. And communication was key in the process, and being flexible about how we were going to work through the project. Step 1 in the project was deciding what was going to be in it, and Erica is going to talk about that.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm an English language teacher, and I used to be a Spanish teacher at SUNY Oneonta. And so, like how Professor Small said, the communication was really, really important and getting this book running. We began by looking at other Spanish textbooks out there. We knew that we had beginners in mind, so we looked at beginner books, and we thought about combining all the different things together to start off our structure sequence. And so every chapter that we have, we start off with, in our Spanish 1 book, leading with the basics, going into more difficult tasks, such as starting with introductions, then getting all the way into talking about the preterite and perfect, the 2 pasts in Spanish, very difficult. And each of our modules, they start with a thematic, different type of vocabulary, such as greetings, introductions. And then our grammar is included into a contextualized and comprehensive text that the students can read to learn the grammar really in how the grammar is taught. And then we follow that structure with different exercises. The first type of exercises is one that is done individually, where students can get the answers self-checked. They can do it on their own. And then it leads to more difficult tasks, such as talking with a partner one-on-one. And then ones that they can derive more personal meaning and have more time to work with the language. And then the last one is getting into more conversations, which is what we really wanted out of this book, was that so students could learn how to speak the language through the communicative approach, which Professor Escudero is going to talk about next.
I am Alejandra Escudero, and I am a Spanish and linguistics teacher or a professor at SUNY Oneonta. The way we created these activities was, as Professor Brown was mentioning, we came up with a series of exercises, activities, and critical thinking and activities that motivated conversation. So these three distinct formative assessments became very relevant because each one of them addressed a different need for a student. We also wanted to focus on what students could do with the language rather than focusing on one specific topic. So we wanted to be able to give that opportunity to our students, to be able to recognize what they can do with the language. We also focused on the writing process. In many of the textbooks we evaluated, we saw that writing was just a task that they included. It was something that students were expected to do in an exam or just an assignment. But we thought that it was very valuable and very useful for students to get used to the writing process from the very beginning, not just for an assignment or for a final production, but a little bit at a time. So in every single module we created, or in every single unit, there is one step beyond that we're providing our students in order to develop their writing skills. All of this was not possible without our background, our professional background. And we based all of these tasks and all of this design on our professional framework.
I am Maria Cristina Montoya, and I teach Spanish at SUNY Oneonta. Our OER book integrates ACFL 5Cs throughout all parts of the text. ACFL is the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. And the 5Cs are communication, communities, cultures, comparisons, and connections. In particular, we have two sections, culture and voices. And these sections include authentic, explicit cultural content. The culture section is informative and descriptive about various practices of the Hispanic culture. And the voices is experiential, narrative. And this incorporates an anthropological view of cultures by including authentic input from heritage language learners and second language learners from SUNY Oneonta. So we use our own students' production to include authentic realia into our textbook. The cultural assessments in these particular parts of the book follow an integrated performance approach where students interpret, interact, and present. This IPA allowed us instructors first to reveal what students can really do with the language. Second, to actively engage students in authentic interaction. And third, learners are able to construct meaning in real world context. So definitely this book right now at pandemic times just came right on time to make our practice easier and connected and meaningful to students.
Hello, I'm John Urang. I'm a course product manager at Lumen Learning. And Lumen's role in this project was really twofold. On the one hand, we were trying to multiply the efforts of the team there, especially creating the thousands of practice questions and assessments that ultimately went into the course. The second thing we did is to kind of make sure that this courseware was really useful for a wide audience in multiple modalities. So for example, the activities that were mentioned before were originally designed as in-class activities, and they kind of came along in the study plan in the place where one would teach them in class. in talking with some of the other potential users of this courseware, we realized that for online students, the way that those activities were presented might be confusing because they've just gone through these self-graded exercises and now they're in these communicative activities and they're not sure what to do with them. So we moved those over into folders where they could be printed out for in class, or they could be pasted into discussion boards or used with third-party software. And then we made those into template discussions and graded activities for online students of Spanish 1. So again, the thinking was really, how do we take the kernels of these ideas and make them useful to as broad a group of students and faculty as possible, while still keeping it as flexible as possible. And that flexibility really came in large part from the Waymaker platform, which is what we built the course into. And what Waymaker does is it takes the learning outcomes of the course and it puts them into sections, which students then proceed through, and at the end of each section are given formative and summative assessments, which allow them to kind of track their own progress and also allow the faculty to see the progress of their students through this courseware. So there's a kind of a combination of self-learning, metacognitive understanding of that learning, as well as then assessed learning on the part of the faculty. One of the other things we do at Lumen with our Waymaker software is continuous improvement, both looking at which outcomes are performing the best, as well as in general, taking input from the community as to where things need to be improved or where things need to be corrected. One of the things that the Spanish book has is a button at the bottom of every page that community members, whether faculty or students, can press that allows them to very quickly point out typos or places where they could imagine other things being there, or places where they think that the explanation could be clearer, and so on. We've had a very lively discussion in that section of the course.
We think that in the first year of the course that we have about 1,000 students using these materials in SUNY and about 3,000 students around the country. And so that's very exciting for such quick adoption right at the beginning of a project. Would anyone like to share anything before we sign off about how it's been going in year 1? All right, no. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.